Squatting explained quickly. You're going to walk up to the bar, you're going to take a grip that is as narrow as it can be, but simultaneously as wide as it needs to be so that you can get the bar into the correct position on your back. You're going to go under the bar until the bar sits just below your traps, resting on the shelf that is provided by your bunched up delts. To unrack the bar, simply take a stance directly underneath the bar. That is essentially your squat stance. That is to say, about shoulder width. Get tight, in other words, take a big breath, clamp down on your abs, clamp down on every muscle in your midsection as if you're about to get punched, and get tight and stand the bar up, and then take approximately 1 step back with your right, 1 step back with your left, and you are going to again assume a stance that is about heels at shoulder width. From here, you're going to point your toes out at roughly 30, maybe 35 degrees. You're going to pick a focal point that is about 4 to 6 feet in front of you on the floor. At this point, you're going to take a breath. You're going to lift your chest while you simultaneously bear down on every single muscle again in your midsection. In other words, in your trunk. Again, preparing as if you were about to get punched from all sides at once. So take a big breath. Hold those muscles tight. You're going to hold your breath all the way down and all the way back up. To initiate the squat, you're going to think of 3 things, the squat trifecta. It is hips back, chest down, knees apart. Yes, your knees will go forward as they bend, but you specifically want to think about the knees apart aspect. In other words, your toes, which are pointing at about 30 degrees, are now arrows for your knees, for your femurs. They are going to travel in the direction provided by your toes. So, hips back, chest down, knees apart. Once you reach the bottom of your squat, once you get the crease of your hip below the top of your patella, you're going to drive right back up. You're going to bounce out of the bottom. Don't worry, you're not bouncing off of anything, but the movement will resemble a bounce. You are utilizing your stretch reflex. When you drive up, you cue yourself to drive your hips up. So you drive your hips up, you stay in your lean. In other words, we want a relatively constant back angle for roughly, let's say, the first half of the ascent. What you do not want to do is raise your chest too soon. Yes, you will finish in a vertical position at the end of the squat, but if you try to get vertical right away, it will make for a harder, weaker, less efficient squat. So drive your hips up out of the hole, stay in your lean. At the end of the rep, release your breath. Then, of course, you'll take a new breath, get tight again as you proceed to go on to the next rep. When you're finished with your set, walk it back into the rack. Simply look where you were looking, in other words, at your focal point about 4 to 6 feet out in front of you on the floor, and walk forward until the bar hits the uprights. Then you'll slide it down the uprights until it's back in the hooks. Don't look for the uprights when you rack the bar. As always, we hope these tips help you get stronger and live better.